business as usual. Let's get stuck into it. Diana, thank you very much for your feedback. I got it late last night, and it was amazing. I didn't expect someone to actually watch the whole thing straight away, and but to give me topics and possibly the next 6 episodes. No, it's cool. I do need to go through and explain, a little bit more into my ideas, because this is stuff that I've been exploring for a couple of years now, and we've been kind of coming across these topics through experiences and journey. But I guess for people that are starting out, with these kind of topics, and Hollow Earth is one that I definitely want to go into a whole lot more.
Yeah.
The densities, that's going to be a whole other episode as well. Dimensions and reality, consciousness. These are all. I get excited at this stuff, so I'm going to be throwing these sort of terms in there and talking about it a little bit, and probably using examples that are like just over my head. I can't explain this stuff, but if I have to do homework, you guys are doing homework, and we'll get through this. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
Where's that from? I listen to too much London Real.
Okay.
Yep.
The London Real journey.
Well, it's all. I don't know. I think you need to enjoy. You need to enjoy the moment, and the moment is the journey.
It's not about the destination. It's about the journey.
Well, you never get there.
Yeah.
You end up in your box like Alan Watts.
Yeah. Ooh, dropping those fat rhymes. I'm gonna have to break down a beat.
We brought tea today because it's going to be a big session. Yeah. I need to be alert. We're talking about some. What are we talking about today?
I'm going to try to explain to you some philosophical and political concepts, and see if you already know a bit about them. Because I don't think we've ever really had a deep conversation on this topic, and it's something I talk about a lot and think about a lot, and put videos on YouTube about a lot. And
I agree with a lot of your points.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm familiar with the area, which is good. It means I'm not flat-footed in this case.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool. It's cool to go through things right through. You know what I mean? So then from here, our podcasts are only going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some knowledge bombs in this one.
I hope so.
Can we add sound effects in?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to add something in later.
I just think
are you going to point at the camera and go pew 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 something? Like that?
Nah, I'm just not for violence. It's got connotations. But I think we should definitely make them more entertaining if they're already not. I know I laugh at myself a lot. Yeah. I've watched the first 2 episodes already, and the first one was okay. Second one was all right. I wasn't particularly happy with it, but I think it's cool that we keep going.
You don't need to be self-conscious, and we just look at it and see how we can improve, and then we keep going.
Well, I'm really enjoying
rolling on through. Yeah, I think we're having a good time, and we're talking about things that are interesting. So that's it's definitely worthwhile. So why not share it? Yeah. Should we do an intro?
Aaron Battle, The Paradise Paradox.
Kurt Robinson, also of The Paradise Paradox. We are together, The Paradise Paradox.
Welcome to join. Thanks for tuning in.
Cool. So, ideas that I think about a lot, these words, these terms like anarcho-capitalism, voluntarism, libertarianism, and then going into the other side, it's things like Austrian economics, which we have talked about a bit. So what do you know about all these ideas?
Well, I remember first talking about these ideas. A year ago, I think you first brought these ideas to me. A few of them I was already aware of, but you've obviously jumped a lot more further into the origins of these ideas. I mean, when we first started talking about Austrian economics, and we would laugh about how I'm the one that's done the business degrees and finished my masters, and it's like, Aaron, tell me about this stuff. And we talked about it, but it wasn't exactly what you were talking about. It was like, I was familiar with the terms, and we could discuss it and have a sweet conversation. But the idea of Austrian economics is so far away from the average day economics of like what we play with.
Yeah, like you study as part of your business degree, you studied macro and micro.
They split it up. There's 2 courses. You spend 6 months doing your macro and 6 months doing your micro. Okay. And a lot of it's about looking at diagrams and understanding. You start off with anyone can say it's all supply and demand, but you literally start with the basics. You go through your supply and demand, and then what effects are on that. You can look at different industries, and you put that in case studies. You analyze all the way through. But then when you start talking about Austrian economics, it's like it's all that, but you're looking at it from a totally different, a different value.
Yes.
Like like where the points actually, what's important? Like what's the critical factors? It's the same graphs.
Yeah.
The same ideas. It's just you start in conclusion. The point that you're talking about that's going to change, or the factor is nearly almost the opposite.
Yeah. So I imagine as part of your economics courses, you probably talk about statistics a lot, and
that's a whole other course.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
so that doesn't come into the economics itself.
No, I mean further down the track. I mean, like,
okay.
You start your business. You start your business course. You macro, that's one topic. Micro, statistics, 1050 was a course that I did. I mean, talking like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I went through them. So, but you're so. This is one thing that I find almost. It's good at the time when you're going through and you're doing it because you are really focused, and the case studies are good. I mean, it's all valuable, but you look at everything so fine that it's hard to relate it to real life.
Right.
Like it's cool to do a case study, but they give you all the data.
Right.
They give you the programs how to analyze it. They tell you what sort of standard deviations you're looking for, or what median value you're looking for. Like you understand all the terms, but unless you got a job that you're doing something with it and you can make this like a reality for you, you cram it, you study it, you do the exam, you get your distinctions, and then you go party.
Yeah.
And then it's next year.
I have to wonder how many people actually get a job that uses economics. And anyway, can you actually, I don't know this, can you tell me what is the distinction between macroeconomics and microeconomics? Okay.
By using the example, I mean, it depends what environment you're looking at.
Yeah.
And then you have to look at the factors inside the environment and then outside the environment. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, it's, you can say a lot of the micro stuff we're talking about was like inside Australia, and then you look inside like Australian industries, and then, you do case studies like that.
Yep.
But then when you get macro, you're talking about like a whole world perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, looking back now, I can't really think of any, I mean, I can't remember any examples that I can tell you that we actually did. Or that I did in the course. Still got the books.
Do you let's see. So a lot of people who studied economics at university. I should make it clear. Like I studied economics just as a hobby. I study Austrian economics, and I think about it.
Great.
Yeah. It's because it's like a puzzle. You think about a certain situation and how people are going to act, what incentives they have, and how that's going to have certain effects. But that's not really what they teach in university, as I understand. So do they teach you about John Maynard Keynes, Keynesianism?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And what do they say about him? Or what do they say about his work, I should say?
See, this is,
It's going back
you study the
far,
modern money, you study the modern money theory.
Right.
It's like, one thing I realized was talking with you about economics, and then looking back at the terms that we use at university, it depends on what book you picked up to what things were called.
Right. Okay.
I mean, the cyclic money theory and modern money theory was something that that we we studied that all the way through, and we draw the diagrams and explain it all the way through, and how where the money trickles through, where it comes in, how it's created. You study all these points, but in the later years, when you start looking at economics from a hobby point of view, and then you come in from, it's like you're coming into the subject at a different angle.
Yes.
And you come in from a point that obviously your interest. And then the case studies that you're doing, I don't know, name a case study from a hobby point of view that you would look at. Okay,
so something like if we look at the economics of the minimum wage, how the minimum wage affects how people work, and how it affects how employers hire employees. Something like that, yeah. How it affects how difficult it is to start a small business. Yep, all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, okay. We'll stick with Australia for example.
Okay.
I mean, just to have a look, because I mean, having a look at I like doing the Australian-US comparison of. I mean, you look at unemployment rates, the minimum wage, how. I mean, you got to look at taxes.
Yeah.
Do you look at taxes, analyze how much tax is actually coming out of a business?
No, I've never looked at that because.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm jumping political. If you start going down that path.
Yeah, that gets into the other side of it. But say with something like minimum wage, it seems like you're making the assumption that the first thing I would look at would be unemployment rates. But that's not where I would start.
Well, see, this is the best part about our two different sides.
Yep.
Because in my case study, I'm fed different data depending on what I'm supposed to analyze.
Yeah.
Where looking from a hobby point of view.
Yeah, from Austrian economics. So the thing about Austrian economics is it starts out with certain assumptions, like ideas like every human action is rational. Like every time you're trying to do something, you're actually doing it because you believe it will benefit you in some way, or it will help somebody in some way, something purposeful.
Value.
Yeah, that will create some value for somebody, whoever that is. And people say stuff like, if somebody is doing a rain dance in his backyard and expecting it to make it rain, well, obviously that's not rational. But that's a different meaning of the word rational. What the word rational means in this context is, yes, this guy is doing a rain dance because he expects it to make it rain. So by that definition, his action is rational, and even though perhaps he's mistaken, I don't know whether he's mistaken. Perhaps he can do a rain dance and get it to rain, but most people would say that's not going to be effective. So the thing about this is, if we look at the minimum wage, the first thing we have to say is, well, what is a minimum wage law? And the only way I know how to define it, I've never seen anyone state a better definition, is that a minimum wage is a ban on jobs that pay between $0 per hour and X dollars per hour, where X is the minimum wage.
Gotcha.
So the question is, a lot of people say, a minimum wage is going to increase employment because it stimulates aggregate demand, which gets into a really complicated view. Whereas to make it really simple, when they say like Occam's razor, the explanation with the least leaps of faith, or the explanation which requires the least faith, is normally going to be correct. It's not always the case, but it's a good heuristic. So what happens when you ban jobs? What could possibly happen?
I don't see anyone paying more than minimum wage if they don't have to.
Well, that's another thing we'll get into. But what happens if you ban a job? Do you think employment will increase or decrease?
When you say ban a job,
well,
what sort of example?
So in this case, we're talking about a minimum wage law. So So the minimum wage in Australia for an adult employee is say $16.50, depending on the award. So if I try to employ you for $10 an hour, even though you're willing to work, and even though I'm willing to employ you for that much, that would not be allowed. If I get caught doing that, then I'm going to be fined. I'm not sure what the penalties are. Maybe I would even be imprisoned. So what effect do you think that would have on employment? Would it increase employment or decrease employment?
I would say that probably decrease employment in that
Yes.
case, in that example.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the going rate, or if that's kind of like if $10 an hour is what the employer is willing to pay, then of course, if they're doing that, why would they have that $10 an hour in the first place? I mean, obviously they've done their budget and they're saying that's all the job is worth to have
Yes.
done for me.
Yes.
Why would I pay $16? But if I had to, then obviously I would employ someone for $16.
But not necessarily, because if it costs $16.50 and I've budgeted for $10, can I still employ you?
Well, it depends if the job needs to be done or not.
Yeah, it does depend. Yes, you're right. But assuming I can figure out some other way of doing it, either by automation or working my other employees harder, paying them an extra $2 an hour to do more work, I'm probably not going to employ you. And so, what's most likely going to happen if you have a minimum wage law is that employment is going to go down.
But the reason why they do this is so we can try and maintain a minimum standard of living. I mean,
yeah, well, that's the theory.
Exactly.
That's the PR campaign. I would say that's what that is. But let's we can analyze that notion too, because what's the real minimum wage? The real minimum wage is always zero, because if you don't have a job,
I thought we got rid of slavery.
that's not what I'm talking about. The real minimum wage is zero, because if you don't have a job, you get paid zero. If you don't have a job, you can't find any way. Yeah. The real minimum wage is always zero. So if you have the choice, let's say you have the choice of earning $0 per hour, and let's say you need money and you are willing to work as an employee. You don't have enough money to start your own business, whatever. You're in this situation where a job will be beneficial to you. So are you better off, in that case, working for $10 an hour, or are you better off not having a job?
You work for what's available.
Exactly.
I mean, we can see this in a lot of emerging economies, where even though in Mexico, I think the minimum wage is 80 pesos a day.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah,
roughly. You there's people working for less. I mean, using the basic. I mean, mathematically, the minimum wage is zero, because someone that's out on the street begging for whatever they can get, they might only get 50 pesos that day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're like, but how is this possible if the minimum wage is 80?
Yeah.
It's like, in theory, you know what I mean, this shouldn't happen. But I mean, the reality.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Austrian economics kind of it captures the reality a little bit more than what we're led to study.
Yes. And that's why it's so interesting that they don't teach it. But that's a whole.
It's not that it's not there.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not focused on. Because I remember when I finished, the two major things that I needed to focus on was understanding the cyclic money system and the whole and the way that interacted with modern money theory.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't done my homework, and this is something that I studied 10 years ago.
Okay. So we don't have to go into detail about that.
But this is what I'm saying. These are things that I remember, and all these terms. I found it fascinating when I was talking with you a year ago, a couple of years ago, when you first started going into, you wanted my point of view and stuff that, was this when you were getting into it as well?
I was probably starting about a year before that, because when in 2012, when Ron Paul was running, I was like, this is an interesting dude. And I remember the first time a video came up on Facebook of somebody had posted a video about Ron Paul, and I was like, whatever. They always put a different politician in to give it a good face, just like they did with Obama.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago when I really got into Ron Paul as well.
Yeah.
Because his point of view was so different.
Yes.
From your standard, I don't know, what you were delivered.
Yeah. So he seemed to be an honest dude, and he seemed to be actually teaching something,
It was
which
like
is something politicians never do.
I'm just saying he stuck his head out. Like he's still around.
Yeah.
Like, how's he going now?
He has his TV show on YouTube and stuff like this. Still writing books. Yeah.
I don't want to get away too far from the topic, but
Yeah.
but Ron Paul and his idea of, he was really pushing to finish up the wars and bring the soldiers home and close all that up.
But that's not off topic because that's all related to what we're
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But what I was really impressed with was his campaign, which was, we can say majority was self-funded, but it wasn't really. Because there was a few, he was happy to openly say that the majority of his funds for his campaigns, he had a pretty big campaign at one point as well.
Yeah.
It was interesting the way the media wasn't expressing that or, just dropping him off the board. But I thought it was good that he was happily explaining that a lot of his funds were coming from the troops themselves.
Yeah.
It's like what does that mean exactly? When you're saying let's bring our boys home, and then they're the guys that are paying for that campaign.
Yeah, they're putting the money there.
It makes you think that they don't want to be there
with their dollars. Yeah,
you got to vote with your dollar.
Crazy idea that people don't want to be in a country on the other side of the world murdering people for a living. What a bizarre idea. Can you believe that?
I could probably believe it, but I've done a few laps of the world, so.
Yeah. So.
Ron Paul, he was, when he started talking about Austrian economics, that's when I started scratching my head a little bit and going, okay, I know this stuff. Like, you know what he's talking about. But it's like when you start throwing in a few different other examples and case studies of your own, and you think, well, what does it actually mean? Or how's it actually affecting? I think it was in the second, one of our last episodes, we talked about how everyone's regurgitating the same figures and no one's really asking questions. I never ask questions. Why would I ask questions? I just wanted to get a good mark.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing too, because macro and micro are parts of like every degree, or so many degrees, even when it's something people aren't interested in. So it's like, yeah, you're going to get educated in something you don't really care about, and we're going to just teach you one perspective or two very similar perspectives.
It was in the core courses. You never had a choice.
Yeah. Why?
It's essentially the same thing, just in a different coloured book. Does that make sense to you? Like, to me, looking back, I can't tell you the difference exactly without using a case study.
Right.
Should I be able to?
The difference between
a macro and micro. Well, economics is economics.
Yeah.
It's not until afterwards you realise that, it's kind of... I understand, it's like an A and a B, but there's no real reason why to do them in any order.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I actually don't know. I never really bothered to learn the distinction. So, but I guess the things that I think about are normally on a micro level. They're normally things like within a community, because these tend to be good thought experiments, like what I just mentioned to you about minimum wage. You can think it through on a smaller scale, and it tends to be a lot easier.
You have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't consider all the factors that are going to throw your curves out, or your factors. Full stop. You can't.
Yeah, you got to you start on a smaller scale, and it helps you understand the principles. Yeah.
One thing that threw me though was we did study a lot of money creation, but I feel like that wasn't something that really meant something to me, or it never really hit my core until maybe a couple of years ago.
So was this as a part of Keynesianism or as modern monetary theory, or you don't remember which?
We studied both.
Yeah.
We studied both. I found the rap videos very entertaining.
Oh.
And it wasn't until
Friedrich Hayek versus John Maynard Keynes.
Yeah. You know the one.
Yep.
I never really found I mean, honestly, when I was in the courses, it was literally just regurgitating the information.
Yeah.
And the
So
fact
they get a free ride on you. They brainwash you because you want to get through the course as quickly as possible without.
well, I mean,
asking
I'm
questions.
not your best student. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I never really was.
Well, of course, about a course that you're forced to do and don't really care about. I mean, why would you?
But that's not really the. I mean it's not that you don't enjoy them, but it's like you wouldn't do it in your weekend. That's kind of the difference. You always have something better to do. I mean, now.
At least I wouldn't study modern monetary theory on the
Well,
weekend. I started reading that dude's book, Warren Mosler, and stylistically, like, I can't even get into talk about the logical fallacies that are included in his economic analysis, but stylistically, it is so bad. It is abysmal. Every anecdote that he includes in the book. First of all, it's a treatise in economics, and he's writing these anecdotes about dinner parties, about where he's explaining things to senators.
I didn't read those papers.
Okay, this is from seven myths about economics. I think or 7 killer myths about economics. It's called something like that. 7 deadly myths. Yeah, and so he tells these stories about So I was at the party with this senator, and then I explained this to him, and he didn't have anything to say about that. So every anecdote in the book was in some way big noting him.
But why would a politician want to know?
Yeah, well, it depends on the politician. Because if the politician wants to justify spending, which a lot of them do, they want to know Mosler, and they want to know his bizarre justifications. From Mosler or from Keynes.
It's easy to say, we're going to do this because this is how it works.
We're going to stimulate aggregate demand. We're going to spend money on a war, and somehow that's by destroying things. We're going to make a more economic activity. So this is another idea, and you recognize this everywhere if you listen to politicians talking, especially about wars, but in some cases about other things. So it's called the broken window fallacy. Have you ever heard of it?
Only briefly. Okay. I mean, I think I've heard of it looking through. Skimming through like my latest research.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Okay. So this is an idea first proposed by Frederick Bastiat about 150 years ago. So he tells this little story. In this case, it's not a big noted anecdote. That's a difference. It's like a parable. And the story is about a neighborhood where there's a butcher, and one morning the butcher comes in and he notices, oh no, his window is broken, and he says, this is just terrible. I'd saved up that $100, and now I have to spend that $100 on to pay the glazier to repair my window. And his friend the banker says, don't worry about it. It's good for the economy. You see, that $100 is going to go to the glazier, and the glazier is going to buy a new suit, and the tailor is going to buy a Christmas ham, and that way it stimulates economic activity. Can you see what's wrong with this?
Of course. I mean, as soon as you started saying the example, it's like this is like the most. When you're talking about modern money theory and the cyclic system of money, like this is like. One brick in that wall that creates a system, that machine.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yes, but why? Why doesn't it work?
Well,
I'm going to test it.
if you open the textbook, it says because everyone has different. There's they break it down to people save money, so it's like it takes money out of the system. It's like the idea of like not everyone's going to follow through that system.
Yeah.
And then. We broke it down to people save money, some money leaves the country. Like, we broke it down like there's a list of examples and why it doesn't go around that little circle.
Yeah. So they were trying to justify why it's bad to save, or
Oh no, it's just something you budget for. It's like something
Okay.
when you're looking at the system, it's like
But
you
let,
know.
let
there's
me
a-
explain, because I'm not sure if my point is completely clear. So Bastiat goes on and says, so we're looking at what's seen. So the butcher has paid the glazier, and the glazier pays the suit, pays the tailor. But what would happen if the window hadn't have been broken? Okay.
well, obviously the guy never got a new suit.
The glazier never got a new suit. But what about the butcher? The butcher has his window, and he has $100. So,
Yep.
So you see, there's the fallacy is assuming that by breaking the window, it's somehow increasing wealth. But that can never be. You can never increase wealth by destroying something.
Well, now it is. That's like the underlying principle of capitalism, and
In what sense?
or in the sense that we need to like create, rebuild, use, consume resources,
Yep.
consume in general, in order to keep the wheel going.
Yep. But that's like if you're breaking a window, is breaking a window capitalism?
Oh no! Now you're gonna twist me all up. I mean, of course, I could say, well, no, of course, I'm not going to say it's capitalism, but I mean, I'm talking about like the core principle of consuming, whether you break something or whether you embed some kind of reason. Or, I mean, isn't the reason why we always have new things coming out, like the idea of
Right,
seasons and
planned
fashion?
obsolescence.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but that can be slightly different. For one thing, the butcher didn't volunteer to have his window broken. He never said, "Hey, boy in the street, take this rock. I'll give you $1. Break my window." So that wasn't voluntary. It wasn't voluntary that his window was broken. Whereas in something like the iPhone 6 or 7 comes out, and people say, "Oh, well, I'm going to sell my iPhone 5 and get a new one." That is completely voluntary. And normally they're getting some value from that, even if it's something like just a fashion. So value is still being created,
But is there any difference though?
Well, I think there is a difference.
I mean, of
because you're
course
not destroying something.
It's not the same thing. I mean, of course, it's not the same thing. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is me being brainwashed. But whatever it takes to have someone consume something, whether it is voluntary or involuntary,
Yeah.
the guy could equally choose not to fix his window.
Yeah, but still the breaking was involuntary.
On his part.
Yeah. Well, okay, the boy breaking the window might have done it on purpose.
Oh, he didn't
Yeah.
like the butcher, obviously.
But yeah, I guess that comes into things like, for example, I've seen with iPhones, like people have iPhone 4s and it downloads the new OS and it does actually break the phone,
Are you
more or
serious?
less. Like I've seen cases where they're trying to send a text message and you press the key, and like 5 seconds later, it actually brings up the letter.
Wait. You're telling me that is something that is embedded in the software to know that the hardware's old, so then it doesn't actually...
I don't know, because I couldn't
That's it.
I couldn't say that for sure, because I don't have the evidence.
No, but just based on that, I feel like cracking my phone.
Jailbreaking it.
Well, I know that, this is something I experience. My phone is, I roll with an iPhone 5, but I know it's been through some rough times. I mean, I'm not particularly, the nicest handling of my phone, but I know that I'm having issues now with that exact point, trying to type my messages and whatever. Like
Right.
this is something that I type and then I do have to wait. But I mean, it's just something that's a common assumption. Well, I've had it for a couple of years. I can justify that I've had my worth out of my phone and it's getting old. But I've got no intention of upgrading.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've got all my apps. I'm happy with. I know there's a way that I can upload that to a new phone. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's easy. I just don't want to go through the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Why would you want to spend the money? I guess. if the fashion of a new iPhone.
But now I'm starting to believe that it's involuntary.
Well, it depends. This is like, personally, I don't think I would buy an iPhone. I wouldn't buy a lot of Apple products because I think they do this sort of shady dealing. But a lot of people are happy buying them. But the point about the broken window is, by breaking a window, you can never be wealthier. And that is, the society can never be wealthier as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like just destruction. I mean, you don't encourage your kids to do it because you know it's going to burn a hole in your pocket.
Yeah.
How is it not going to burn a hole in a country's budget?
Yeah, that's right. And that's why when we talk about war, and people like Paul Krugman and a lot of economists saying, oh, well, war is good for the economy. It's not.
It's definitely micro. They're not looking at the macro situation.
That's right, because like some people make that argument to me, like they say, oh, World War II was great for the Americas, and I say, well, it was great, but it was a win-lose situation, and you're not looking at the opportunities that people would have had, that is the unseen, the opportunities that could have existed if all these resources weren't artificially diverted into killing people. And killing people isn't really cool.
I mean, war is just, there really isn't, there's no need for it.
Yeah.
There's no need for any violence.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think that, what's the difference between bullying at school and everyone gets up and roars about how bad bullying is in school. But I mean, why are countries doing it to each other?
Yeah, yeah. Or it's like that clip of Marilyn Manson in Bowling for Columbine, and he says well, I like to think that I'm an influential person, but I don't think I'm as influential as the President of the United States, who just weeks before had bombed a country, just weeks before the Columbine shooting.
But do you really think the President has that much power?
Well, no. I mean, yes and no. He has power in certain senses, not as much as people make it out. But yeah, I think he would have. I think the President of the United States would have the power to do something stupid like bomb a small country to divert from the fact that there's a scandal about who he has sex with. I think that's a definite possibility. I think he could pull some strings to get that to come off.
I think you're right. I think although I believe that the head of any political party at some level is a puppet for whatever the party or whatever the people that are controlling the party has planned for that political group. I don't think that if they had it in them, they could come out and expose that to a certain level, or at least put their foot down and say, we're not going to do this, or we're going to do this in a different way, or there's got to be a different way of doing this. I think in that respect, they've got power. Yeah, but
then the question is, it'll be like Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard. She finds a way to flip it over and get rid of him or something like that.
That's pretty a nice
all those
way.
Power plays.
Yeah, that's pretty a nice way of playing their power.
Or the other way is JFK.
Exactly. I mean, there's several examples where I'm sure the power didn't quite go the right way when someone felt uncomfortable at what was happening.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because there are rules you can break and there are rules you can't break. And when you start saying stuff about what was it he said? There's a monolithic group of people who control things in the United States, who attempt to control the world, and he was trying to issue silver certificates, so bring honest money into the currency supply.
Yeah.
So that definitely had effect on
that speech. That speech. Do you think it changed the world as much as what it should have? Not
yet. A lot of people listen to it these days and say, "What's going on here?" It makes them ask questions.
Well, I mean, I didn't. When I saw it, I saw it only recently, maybe in the last couple of months. Again, like probably the last time I've listened to the whole thing through, and every time that I hear it, it just seems to let off a little, like another spark. You know what I mean? Like there is more information there than what people realize. I mean, this is like going back to when I first heard it, I mean, I think a lot of people have heard it and just said, oh, cool. They've accepted it. It's a powerful speech. But when you really listen to it and you get through all the information, and there's so much information in it that I'm still yet to capture. I mean, I believe I got the whole message, but I believed I got the whole message the first time I heard it. But every time I hear it, I think of something else.
Yeah.
It's got a very high level of consciousness.
Yeah, he's saying a lot of interesting things, and not all of them are immediately obvious. So it is very interesting, and that's why it's been the topic of much speculation by conspiracy theorists.
We're not going down that path, not yet.
But I want to talk to you about philosophy and the philosophy of politics, the philosophy of government. So, can you tell me, do you know what theft is?
I've got a pretty good idea.
Okay. Give me a definition.
A definition would be to take something without having the ownership of that item.
Yep. Sure. Do you know what taxation is?
Taxation. Well, I'm not a big fan of taxation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've got the same reasons.
Yes.
Taxation would be giving the money back to the land, or who's in control of that land.
Who's in control, or who owns it?
Yeah, that's a good definition. I mean, do I have to pick?
I think you might have to make a distinction.
No, okay. I'll say I would have to say paying money
Yeah.
to people that are in control
Okay.
of that land, because I personally I don't believe anyone should have the right to own any land.
Oh, really?
Why? Why should they have the right to own land, to lease, or to occupy? Is different to own.
Okay. That's all right, we'll get into that later because that might be a very interesting thing. So taxation is when you're forced to pay money to somebody who controls the land, or when.
Well, I mean, you are forced to. I mean,
Yeah.
you're backed. I mean, you have to. Otherwise, I mean, there's certain ramifications that potentially violent. Either way, there's no positive. There's no positive outcome by not paying your taxes.
Right. Okay. Unless you get away with it.
Involuntary.
Involuntary. Yeah. So you're saying that it is a violent interaction. Taxation is inherently violent because there are going to be violent consequences if you refuse, or at least the threat of violent consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
would you say there's any difference between taxation and theft in terms of facts?
Well, I'm not the best with English, but those two words are totally different. But
theft and taxation.
Well, I mean, if you want definitions, or you want my personal point of view.
Both. Yeah. Whatever you want to say. And any way you can bring it.
Yeah, look, I know we both have the same view.
Yeah.
The same view on this. To pay for something to someone that I believe controls that land, maybe, I don't know, officially with the right to, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
We're talking about involuntary payment that we're forced to, backed by possible violence.
Yeah.
That's no different to me getting mugged.
Yeah.
I mean, that's no different to me involuntary having to give. Well, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Having to give you money.
I'm actually happy the way I explained that.
Good. Yeah, I liked it too.
Yeah.
So do you ever know? Let's see. How do governments get their money?
Well, there's how do they get their money? This is homework. I know taxes, of course. I mean,
Taxes. Okay, so they get the money from theft. Number one.
You're changing my words, man.
What you just?
No.
You just said agreed that it's the same thing. Right?
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. Look, tax.
Yeah. So theft.
Well, the government is us. It's our representation.
What do you mean the government? I've never worked for government. What do you mean the government is us?
Well,
I've never received a paycheck from them.
The government is the government of people that we've put in place to assist our community lift our. I mean, I don't know, pull our resources together.
But they steal money off you.
I hear what you're saying.
But wait, who steals the money? Do you steal the money?
If I am the government, am I stealing the money?
If you are. No. Do you personally, Aaron Banner, do you steal the money?
I don't steal the money.
Okay. Do I steal the money?
Well,
Have you ever seen me
if I do
accept
steal
taxes?
The money, I haven't taxed anybody, if that's the question.
Okay, because you said government is us.
Well, we put the government in place. I mean, this is something that people need to like really work out. No one's happy with the government.
Yeah.
In the majority of countries.
Yeah. But you're telling me that we put them in place, but then you're saying that nobody is happy.
Yeah. No,
there's a definite contradiction there.
Well, this is something everyone's dealing with. This is why. Yes. This is why we're doing what we're doing and where we are.
Yes.
Because you need to realize that you're not exactly in control as much as you think you are.
Yes.
It's like we vote. Yeah, cool. You know what I mean? Like, I vote. And my vote, equal system, maybe, who I voted for didn't get in place. You know what I mean? If they did get in place, what difference does it make? Yeah. What happens if I didn't want to vote? Or what happens if I'm not happy with the government system?
We'll get fined.
Well, look, I got no problem saying that I haven't voted for the last couple elections.
Good.
Like, I don't even know when the elections are.
You said the government is us. Do you stand by that statement, or you think there's something wrong with that?
Oh no, I know there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
I know there's something inherently completely wrong with that.
Okay. So we know that you haven't stolen money on behalf of government. I haven't stolen money on behalf of government, or at least we're assuming that.
Well, I know my bank account doesn't reflect that.
Yeah, exactly. So we can't really say that government is us because we don't steal money from people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah.
And it's true. But I mean, I want everyone to realize that the government is in place because they let them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this
is something that, and we accept that they're in place. We could turn the government off. I mean, we as in the people could turn the government off. But
it's possible, yeah.
But most people are happy.
But you know what? This is a thing too, because what normally happens if there's a revolution.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
No. Well, yeah, it's bad because you know what happens after a revolution?
We press reset.
There's another government.
we play again. It's like you ever played the game Risk?
Yeah, sure.
I love that game, but I know I didn't finish a game. That board was always flipped. You ever finish a game of Risk?
I think I have.
I mean, at what point do you? But there's always someone that's like winning from at least halfway through the game onwards, and you can't compete. They've got all of Africa.
There's another 6 hours.
Yeah, it goes forever. It's like it's like cool. You win. I'll give you the handshake.
Yeah.
It's like why don't we just do that? Why don't all the communities just delegate their own leaders? And they all get together and go handshake the government and go, you can go home now.
But why do the leaders need to do that? Like, who are these leaders?
Well, I'm saying people. Let's start back at Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
You know what I mean? Like, let's start in your home. Let's start working out. Who's kind of I'm not saying who's the boss, but who are you happy to talk on your behalf? Like, who are you happy to say? They're going to look after this. Okay,
well, but I don't know why you need to do that necessarily. There are things like you mentioned Neighborhood Watch, but there's this app called Peacekeeper. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay.
No, tell me about it.
So Peacekeeper is kind of like a technological neighborhood watch app. So what happens is you elect 11 or 12 people in your phone, preferably people that you know in your community, people that you trust, And that way, if something happens, like there's a burglary at your home, you're worried there's an intruder, perhaps even if there's a fire, you can press your button on your Peacekeeper app, and all of your neighbors that are available come and help you, because you have a reciprocal agreement. Of course, you're going to help them if they're in trouble. And that way, you always know that there's going to be a few people around who can help you, a few people who you trust, who are willing to stick their necks out for you. And so this is...
That app needs to get more exposure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm all about P2P apps.
Yeah.
Like connecting people to people with that kind of app. Or, I mean, for any future trade, I mean, if anyone's interested in helping me put together something, we can get a team. We can do this, for sure.
Yeah.
But how long has this app been around for?
About a year, I think.
Have you been following its progress?
No. Just a little bit. I listened to a couple of interviews with the dude who made it.
Yep.
So it's cool. Things like that. People looking out for each other. Of course, in some communities, like for example in Detroit, if you call the police, if you're in an area where they actually show up, because they don't show up to every area, if you are in an area where they do show up, the average wait time is about 4 hours. So immediately the value of the Peacekeeper app becomes obvious.
When in the last episode you mentioned Acapulco and how the police have gone, it was first the transit police that went on strike, and then there was a few other officers that also went on strike afterwards. I understand why Mexico probably doesn't know about this, why the media hasn't really covered it. But looking at that, Detroit was like in the same, when you Google this stuff, Detroit's like right there with Acapulco, as in like these are the places that are like within the last month that have these sort of cases that you're talking about, where the police system, the government system, they're failing. And there's no need for them. And there's like a strength growing between the communities that, this software sounds great.
Yes.
But like there's a strength growing there between like these communities that do need to operate, and they need to operate because people are going to continue living their lives and they want to feel safe and they want to interact. And we do have these technologies now that we can put together solutions.
Yeah. So let me ask you another thing, because still I want to drill some more on this.
I know you got more points.
I got they're going forever. Yeah. So do you think with the Peacekeeper app, if it works well, then that demonstrates that maybe police aren't as necessary as we once thought? Do you agree?
Well, personally, I haven't interacted with a policeman for many years.
Yes.
And when I haven't received any value.
No. Yeah, I remember once a policeman, I was like, I wasn't doing something particularly great, I was trespassing or something, but the police officer threatened to put my head against the concrete and jump on my face or something. I don't know what he was directly threatening violence against me.
I nearly got shot.
Wow. By Mexican police or Australian police?
No, by an American policeman.
Wow, okay. Okay, are you going to share that story, or should we keep that for another time?
I know time's running out. I would like to share the footage.
Yeah.
Have I shown you?
No, I don't think so.
It's a real deal. I mean, I know any friends that are watching, a lot of them might know the story, and it's quite...
What's the time? Okay, it's 54 minutes in, so if we want to, we can keep going and split it up.
No, I don't want to... I mean, I know the people that are close to me know the story. Yeah. And I've probably seen the video. But... he didn't add value.
Well, that's without question. Yeah. So what legitimate functions do you think government provides, if any?
Legitimate functions.
Yeah.
I know so. A lot of the functions that are actually positive, are because they're fixing their own mess.
Right.
I mean that's something that I believe to my core.
Yeah. So that's not, in a way, that's not really legitimate, because it's like It's like if
I mean,
if
I
the
have an
glacier
answer.
pays $1 to the kid breaks your window, and then the glacier repairs your window. I mean, yeah, the repairing the window is legitimate, but can you really call the glacier's business legitimate?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of insurance either.
I'm not talking about insurance.
No, but I mean, but this is like we're talking about businesses that are capitalising on
Right.
these sort of society, political, monetary constructs,
Yeah, yeah,
and you know, there's businesses that are now growing on top of this stuff. It's kind of like, I understand their place, but if people understood their place, they wouldn't have a place. But yeah, okay, let's go back to government.
Yeah.
What positive roles do they play?
What legitimate functions do they serve?
Well, I know the roles look after. I mean, let's say the politics, the government. They, you know, they look after schools, hospitals. I'm gonna say police because you know they're involved in there too.
So let's say if the police do actually do a good job, which in our experience they don't really do a good
Well,
job.
I mean, soon as when I think of policemen, I'm automatically, you know, rushing through my head, for example, is like, you know, what happened in the US. You know, this is years ago.
Right.
You know, my experiences with friends that have, I mean, you know, I've had my run-ins,
Yeah.
for sure. But to be more accurate, with my latest interactions, I mean, I've been here in Mexico for a little while,
Yeah.
and I've dealt with police here,
Yeah.
and I've never had an issue.
Right.
Like,
If you bribe them, or
Well, that's my point. I've never had an issue.
okay,
Like in the
you've
last
never had to bribe them.
this year, I've never bribed any policeman. There were some transit
I
police.
guess we should have.
I mean, if you want to talk examples, I mean, there were some
Because
transit police.
this is a common thing. If anybody doesn't know, it's a really common thing to bribe a policeman in Mexico, because that's just it's an accepted thing because they don't get paid very well.
It has a term.
Yeah,
Tienes que dar tu mordita.
mordita,
A little
bite,
bite.
peck.
A little bite of your sandwich. Because they're hungry too. They probably know their job. They know they're doing something. Accepting bribes isn't something I think they want to do.
Yeah,
But of course, on a weekly basis, they would know that that's part of their income now.
Yeah.
And the society, the culture's made it that way.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure these policemen are getting paid the best. But my interactions with the policemen here, I'm always happy to ask them, like, you know, for directions or for, you know, for assistance in, you know, where am I going here? And they're always like just super cool, just happy to help.
Okay.
Now, that's only my experience.
The Mexican hospitality. Oh, that's nice.
But I mean, the last negative interaction would have been I had some transit police
Right.
at the airport here in Guadalajara when I was. I'm not sure if you went with me.
I don't
You were?
think so.
I was with a crew. You know, this was going back a month ago, and we actually I went to pick up my sisters, and in that there was a mistake in the communication, and you know we were there early, so you know we did a few laps of the car park. I was hoping to do the pickup, drive in, pick up, keep cruising. But because we stopped in like the taxi zone for like, I mean, it could have been 10 minutes, you know, enough for one of us to run in and check if they were there. They tried to book me. Of course, you know, I asked them like several times, I've lost my sister, are you going to help me? Or are you going to at least let me know where I can get help? And by continually asking them for help,
Yeah.
they just completely dismissed and just said, we're not going to get money out of this guy.
Okay. So they gave up on looking for a bribe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the dudes that were with me, like my crew that were with me at the time,
Yeah.
there was a mixed discussion on just pay them, Aaron, and let's move, or what are we going to do? So we sent someone to pay for the parking, because at this point they directed us into the parking. So we paid for the parking ticket. I said, look, I've lost my sister. Are you going to help me find, or are you going to direct me to where I can announce that I've lost someone?
Yeah.
Or not. As soon as they basically gave me the I'm not going to help you, then I realized, okay, our conversation is done here.
That's pretty badass.
I mean, I was really pissed off. And when I realized what was happening,
Yeah.
I mean, these were intimidating policemen. Maybe not so. I mean, like, you know, they wear they're all their official, like, their gear on.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was 4 of them, you know, trying to surround me, I thought, this isn't. I don't have fear for that kind of thing. And the fact that I was with, you know, my crew, this wasn't something. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, because any of them can pull out cameras and start shooting you, and
There wasn't like that. It wasn't worth their time.
yeah,
So once we established that, then we left. But going back to what you're saying, where's the value in their service, or in government, schools, hospitals?
yeah.
I mean, but this stuff here, a lot of it's gone private now. I mean, like,
Okay, so it doesn't have to be done by government.
well, that's what it looks like.
So let's. I'll see if we can wrap this up.
Wrap it, man.
Or maybe we may need to continue this on the next one. But
For sure.
Let's see. So, if something can be paid for by theft, or it can be paid for voluntarily, which is preferable?
If people were awake, things would be done on their terms.
Answer my question.
I'll answer from my perspective.
Yeah.
I like to do things voluntarily.
Yes.
If you're going to put me into a corner, I'll bite you. You're like, I'm not going to play. I like to do things out of my own will, out of my own, you know, what I'm feeling.
Yes. So it's like if you can have a private school system rather than a school system which needs to steal money from a lot of people and run that way.
I like the way you put it. Well, I think if you had money,
Yeah.
like, I mean, because these schools understand that we're talking they need to offer something more than the government schools to be able to ask for money. Why would you pay for something that's something given to you? It needs to be premium.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
at least,
but that's a thing as well, because that's an effect.
it's justifiable in the society.
Yes, because the government system is free. It's free to the end user, but really it's paid for by theft. So if you have the choice, you know, I've made this decision too. Like in Australia, the healthcare system is socialised, and even though I know actually I want a good doctor, sometimes I say, well, I'll go with the doctor that's free to me.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Though, to be honest, the level of service that I receive from a doctor that's not free it's like blows it out of the water. If I paid like $70 for a doctor's visit in Australia, it's incomparable. It's amazing how much better the service is. Like they treat you like a person rather than a number. They need to get in and get out, and that's a thing where I
haven't been to see a doctor in also, it could be like 5 years.
Right.
I just don't go to doctors anymore.
All right. Well, it doesn't hurt to have a little checkup.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But,
check yourself.
So the point is, like if government institutions like schools, hospitals, police, if they can be provided voluntarily without theft, then I think you'd agree that that's preferable.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Mainly, if you want to wrap this up.
Yep.
Because when you know that you need to supply a service to receive money, we're talking about like a trade.
Yep.
Then you need to trade something that the customer is going to be satisfied with.
Exactly, and that's the economic incentive provided by a free market. Yep. Excellent. Okay, so my name's Kurt Robinson.
Aaron Battle.
This is the Paradise Paradox. Thanks for listening. Press like, press subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter. My handle is @TroubleBubble.
Aaron Battle, Twitter. Find me, message me, send me your questions.
Cool.